During those times, I just had this interior feeling that I had no option except to come back and keep trying.
Meet this week's giant, Alan Webb. Alan is an American middle distance runner who is celebrated for holding the record for the fastest mile run by an American. Webb's crowning achievement came in 2007 when he set the American record in the mile with a time of 3 minutes, 46.91 seconds, a record that stood until September of 2023.
At some point, you're going to realize what is going to fulfill my ultimate desire. This little voice inside of me said, you need to fill it up with what matters, and that was God.
Over his career, Webb participated in numerous international competitions, including the Olympics.
It's not just a matter of who trains the hardest. There's plenty of people that train hard. Optimal training will beat hard training 90% of the time.
You should stay in the victim mentality. I gotta stand and fight for my honor and my family. That's how I did it, cause you know that's how it had to be. So now I'm slaying dragons and I do it happily. I told him I refuse to be another casualty. I looked inside the dragon's eyes and then I told him casually, hi, I'm a dragon slayer and I got a dragon lair. I'ma go and slay a dragon, then I'm gonna dragon there. I don't care, I ain't scared. Look inside my heart and there's a lion there. Conquering my dragons, I ain't fighting fair.
Well, Alan, it's great to be with you. I for many years, and this is almost like talking to you, this is almost like starting with, oh, that boring thing, but I have to do it. For so many years, I would tell the classic Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile, story. Okay. And just how impressive that is. I mean, all the misconceptions people had about whether or not it is, humanly possible. And let me just lead with this. When you broke the 4-minute mile for the first time, how old were you?
I was 18.
You were 18 years old when you broke the 4-minute mile. And then ultimately speaking, you took almost 14 seconds off that time. Let's just let that sit and bake for a little bit. And let me ask you, when you were growing up, when did you start to recognize that you might have something here? And what was it that got you to take it as seriously as you did and to develop that natural talent that you had into a refined skill?
Well, I'd say it was my freshman year in high school when I first joined the cross country team. I mean, pretty quick, I realized that I was pretty talented. I grew up swimming. That was kind of like my big thing, and swimming. And I also played soccer and basketball too. So I call that kind of like secret, the sort of like hidden cross training, because I was pretty mentally tough for the swimming and aerobically fit. And I'd say I was fast enough. I wasn't the fastest guy on the field or on the basketball court, but that's all right, but when I really started formally training, which didn't happen until high school, I developed pretty quick, then it still took another year or so into my sophomore year for me to really commit to what you said, to really say, hey, I'm going to, put everything into this to really refine it. That kind of came a little bit later, but it was pretty quick. Once I got to high school, that I realized said, whoa, I actually am pretty good at this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big moment for people in life when they say, especially, I don't know what you compare it to, but there's a lot of people who are like, I felt pretty ordinary most places in life. And so when I recognized that I was kind of extraordinary here, I had to let that sink in. Were there, people in your life that helped you see this and encouraged you to take it seriously? Or were you this type of person who naturally said, oh, I found something here, I'm going to go for it?
Hey there, Giant. Dave Duran here, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our brand new e-newsletter where you will get the best of the best tips and insights to unlock the giant in you, build an empire, and slay some dragons. Sign up below. Let's go slay some dragons.
I would say a little bit of both. I think it was that feeling from an interior standpoint was there, but I did have some people that nurtured that. First of all, my parents. I mean, they didn't push me in terms of like trying to motivate me that much. from sort of the classic coach, kind of like, oh, go do this, go harder or whatever, they didn't do that, but they supported me, and so, they always took me to practice, and there were moments, sometimes, when it kind of got hard, when I was in swimming, when they said, hey, you said you wanted to do this, so it's time for early morning practice, let's go.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it, then we won't do it. But you said, you told us that's, you made that commitment to us, to yourself and everybody, so you got to go. But then I had great coaches too. I mean, my coaches in high school, especially Scott Roscoe, who coached me throughout my professional career, he just nurtured my talent, and I, from an X's and O's standpoint, and really kind of helped open my eyes further to what's possible.
Mm-hmm. And so here you are, you're in high school, and you're starting to figure out, I'm pretty good at this. Now, there's a record that is standing for quite some time at this point, a 36-year record for the national fastest time. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
And when did you put that in your sights and say, I think I can do this, or didn't you think about it?
I never even thought about it. Well, I knew about it. I did know about it, but that wasn't ever I didn't write it on a napkin or it wasn't like Alan Webb's goal, right?
Yeah, right.
I did think I had a chance to break the 4-minute mile in high school after my junior year. Well, I really my sophomore year. I mean, when I broke Jim's sophomore class record, which he held at the time, he held the sophomore class record. I figured, well, Jim ran 3:55. I don't know about that, but if I got 2 years to break 4 minutes, I think I could do that. That seemed realistic to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ran under 4 minutes for a 1,600 meter split on a relay my junior year, which would be, it's like a 4:02, 4:03 type open full mile. Mm-hmm. And then I also ran 4:03, my junior year. And I felt like I had a chance my junior year to break 4 minutes. So, going into my senior year was really just, hey, if I could just break 4 minutes, which nobody had done since the 60s as well, I would have felt pretty good about that.
Yes.
So really what my coach had instilled in me was to just get better, try to improve. And that was the mentality that we had. It's sort of the in coaching, they say, focus on the process, and to be honest, I did. That's kind of what we did. I didn't look too much at what other people were doing. I just focused on me getting better, and the result came later. The results just came naturally.
So when you talk about getting better as a runner, to people who are not runners, okay, that sounds a little funny. To people who do run and have had training in running, you can understand it a little bit more. But what I love about this is that you've kind of pulled something out for people who have it's just classically want to improve. We call them wanting to become giants. You have to know what your motives are, okay? And you were basically saying, yeah, I knew about this thing out there, but my motive was to become better. And then you have to know how to accomplish that. And in running, I can hardly think of something that has a greater relationship between the will to accomplish it and sacrifice and highly, highly refined techniques. Because in running, it's like minor, simple adaptations and changes which shave off fractions of seconds. How did that relationship work for you? The understanding that, okay, I can learn something here, because that's hard for young people. I can actually learn something here versus just gut through becoming better. Do you have a memory of that at that age?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll actually rewind a little bit without taking too much time to the swimming part. Let me go back to that point. I was I was a good swimmer, I would say. I would say probably above average. I think if I had continued, I may have been able to do okay at the NAIA level. Maybe walk on some D2, D1 teams if I had stuck with it. That was about my level. But I tried really hard, right? I know 5'9", and my wingspan's 5'9". So going up against Ryan Lochte and Michael Phelps, it just wasn't going to work,
Yeah.
But I tried hard, and I was in the pool, and I just the effort was there, and so.
Did you like that more than running?
Eventually, no, because it was I didn't like. I wasn't as good. I wasn't as good as at the. I just technically wasn't as good. I just couldn't. At least in my current state, I didn't get the technique down as much as I should have. And looking back, I could have improved technically. And running, I guess I enjoyed running a little bit more because you get to be outside more a little bit. Maybe I enjoyed that a little better, a little bit more because it's more of an outdoor sport. So maybe I eventually was drawn to that as well. But the work ethic part is what I'm getting at. To just answer your question. And so, like, how do you get better? What do you do? Do you just go run? Like, you just go out and run 10 miles every day? Is that the formula? For the distance runner, that's part of it. You can actually, to some degree, get better if you just ran 10 miles every day. But that only gets you so far. That wasn't the only thing, part of my swimming journey was that I really fell in love with that process of I work hard, I get better, and I saw those results from an early age, and so I just transferred that into running. That's all I did, and the nuances of like which drills to do, how much hard running or hard swimming to do on this day. In what prescription? My coach helped me with that. He was amazing at that, and he helped me to train hard, but also train smart too. Because it's not just a matter of who trains the hardest. That there's plenty of people that train hard, but optimal training will beat hard training 90% of the time, and the other 10%. That hard training just happens to be that person's optimal training.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. That's interesting. One of the things that I've learned just over the years is that there are, first of all, let me just start by this because it's the most important thing to say. There are many great coaches out there. Okay. That's the most important thing. But there are plenty of bad ones who literally either don't understand how to inspire or motivate, or maybe they know how to do that, but they don't know what they're talking about. And when you're in high school and you have this potential to, as you did, set the national record, which you held for 16 years, okay, under the wrong care, you might have made some misturns. What are the things your coach did right? You kind of alluded to some of them, but there are any other ones that come to play? Because now you are a collegiate coach, and you are probably drawing back on some of that and saying, yes, this is what works, and I have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll try to talk briefly about some of the sort of X's and O's, right?
Yeah,
I'll just say that he did a very good job with me. It was giving me all of the things I need in moderation. And for example, let's say like you have like a hard day, like a hard interval day. We'd only do those probably twice a week. We were really going pretty darn hard, like in cross country, let's say you do mile repeats, which is sort of the classic cross country workout. Like you do 3 or 4 times a mile, let's say, do that on Tuesday. And then we would do another harder workout of maybe 800s, like half miles, right? But we do that on Friday. And then we would do a longer run. You talk about running 10 miles, 10, 12, maybe 13, even 14 miles. We do that probably once a week, maybe on a Saturday. And then the other days were more recovery day. But he was also very good at plugging in skipping drills that would be, you call it like plyometric drills to work on your explosiveness, and we would do speed endurance. Later in my career, we did a little more what we call like special 2 speed endurance stuff that's like between 100 and 200 meters. We ended up doing that about once a week. And so he was really good at just giving me sort of the right amount of hard, and then there was quite a bit of I can call it recovery stuff, and where you'd get out there and work, and that would probably be what you'd call like a 10-mile, like if I say go run eight miles, right? And it sounds kind of hard, but it's running for 50 minutes to an hour at a relative, a conversation type pace, it's not that hard, really.
You spoke a language so foreign to most of us. But it's not that hard to run 8 to 10 miles at a conversational pace in 50 minutes. Oh yeah, totally. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But that came later. Like that conversation pace came later, right? And that's what anybody can do. You might not cover 8 miles in 55 minutes, but I could tell you to go run easy for 50 minutes. You could, I could say go run at a pace that's conversation, whatever pace that is.
Yeah, right. Whatever that is. So I'm curious about this too in the X's and O's, because this is a metaphor for so many other things that people need to do, and you can learn it through this kind of sports analogy. When you get tired as a runner, and your form starts to slip a little bit, how can that affect your time? I mean, not just the exhaustion factor, but the fact that when you get tired, you now do things in a more labored way. So it kind of tired begets bad form, which begets slower performance. What?
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
talk about that.
Well, I mean, if you're in a race, then that's the part where you just got to suck it up and keep going until the end, and then you come back and you fix stuff later.
But how do you just knock my mic. How do you recognize that though? See, because one of the things is like that fatigue, oftentimes the person is now in fatigue and off form before they're aware of it. And you have to stay ahead of it, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's more of just a feeling. I mean, you like when stuff starts to go wrong, you gotta know. I mean, when it starts to get to, like maybe like your competitors are pulling away from you,
yeah, right.
And you're not sure, like, hey, what's going on? I'm going hard. What's happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can generally feel it, or you'll get feedback, like, hey, am I slowing down? Am I speeding up? You'll get that feedback at some point.
Somehow pretty immediately. Yeah. But I mean, it's like preventative is probably way better. Like if you could just stay ahead of that pain, stay ahead of that sloppiness, as opposed to having to read these signals and go, wait a second, I'm off, and to recalibrate. That's where
the preparation comes in. That's the preparation part. Yeah. That's where it comes in. And those things come with practice. Pacing comes with fitness for distance runners. That part comes with the work that you do, and it's you mentioned like how do you recognize that? Well, that's part of the process of training. Like you have to practice that, and you'll start to recognize through some workouts like, hey, I was running 400s and 75 and it felt this hard. And then, if you maybe the next time you're running 400s, but they're 72 and they felt the same, are you getting better? Well, you can sense that. And then when it comes to the race, you'll know if the coach says go out at this effort or at this pace, you'll know what that's going to feel like. You'll know inside what that would feel like. Just like if I told you to go run a 400 in 75 seconds, you'd probably be dying after like one.
I would now, but I think I might have told this already on the air, but you want to, I'll just give you the summary of my track.
Okay.
I could run maybe a 54. Okay.
Okay.
But I was on I didn't realize actually at the time that it was a little bit above the human average, but still for a track athlete, it puts you kind of in no man's land, right? And I was on a team that was fast. So there were a bunch of guys that were like 50 or sub 50, maybe 8 of them. It was on just my team. So I had a complex, like I was super slow. Well, one time I missed my heat in an indoor race, and there were a bunch of like Olympic hopeful guys in this competition. And so, a quarter mile on an indoor race, if you have the outside stagger, because I missed my heat, they put me in the fastest slow, by the way. And if you have the outside stagger, you're like a third of a lap around to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And it should take, if the runners are all fairly competitive, it should take most of the 2.5 laps for it to equal out, right? And you still have this like false, ahead pace or whatever it is. I'm telling you, these guys were ahead of me by half a lap. And they were off the track so far before me that people started to walk on the track like this over. And I hear this big booming voice go, "Oh my, look at the white boy. Look at the white boy. He is still going." And I just wanted to run off the track like I was running out. Anyway, so when you say I could run a 75, not at this point right now. I could maybe walk or whatever. Okay, that nobody is listening to this show to hear that. So, okay, a couple of other things. So you go out and you're becoming who you're becoming, and you've got this big future ahead of you. I know, because no story is like this, that things did not always go the way you wanted always. There was something that got in your way that maybe set you back or mentally got in the way or physically got in the way. Tell us about those times and how you got past them.
There's a lot. I mean, the injuries, one of the biggest things that, runners try to prevent is getting hurt because you're pushing the envelope. And when you can't train to get better, I mentioned, the preparation was what is really what drives it all. And when you can't do that, then you're not really playing the game. The game is to train, push your body, let it adapt, and then go to the next level. That's the game. Can you continue to climb the stairs of improvement by applying stress to your body, and then recovering from that, and then being stronger the next time you go out? That's the game of running. That's what it is.
I mean, that's a general athletic game. I know as a fighter, there were some schools and mentality of the styles where they would just pound on each other, and their careers were short, and their training was that way. But the guys that could last a lot of years, we'd just go in and we'd play tag for like a couple of hours. It was just like tag, and you really didn't go as hard as you could go unless you're actually competing. And there was that measurement against injury that you're kind of discussing right there. Is this coaching? Is this individual? How do you get to that place where you know how much is too much?
Well, my coach helped me with that, but I did have some adversity. I had tons of injuries from like head to toe. I could tell stories about, stress fractures, tweaking, my hamstrings. I had Achilles surgery, or you get sick at the wrong time. Leading up to 2007, I got really sick during the cross country season that I was planning on doing in 2006. I got really sick, and I ended up doing my one and only 10K on the track in 2006. But then I got injured after that. I tweaked my hamstring after that, and so I didn't even run U.S. championships that year in 2006. So it was really just a huge swing for me to have such a great year the next year. But that's one story. It was a sickness and a hamstring. So, but I've got more. As a coach and as a runner, what is the difference between you, who then go on to break a record and win the gold medal 3 times, and somebody else who is telling the story this way? Well, yeah, I would have been good, but my hamstring.
but it was bad timing. I got sick. Now, you know this two ways, yourself, and you've seen other competitors who just, that was the end for them, but you stuck it out, and then you've been a coach and you've seen this. So like, what's the wisdom on that?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak to what other people would do, but I just know that during those times, I just had this interior feeling that I had no option except to come back and keep trying. Like I knew, I was like, well, this happened. I have to pick myself up and get back out there. After this is all, once I get, just, take the rest and do whatever recovery prescription that I need to do to get better. And then I just got to get back out there and try again.
There are times on the show where I just absolutely have to highlight this. Like what you just said there, Alan, is like, oh, we're going to make this a short piece. You said something that to you, because you're a world-class athlete, so you kind of, I mean, you must know how exceptional you are because everybody told you for your whole life, but you don't come across that way. You have a humility about you where you have this conversation like normal, but it's not. It's a freak show of unbelievable. And when you say, well, I just looked at it as though I had no option, I just want to underline that. I want to highlight that. I want our listeners to just let that bake in their mind for a moment, that like the reduction of choice and just creates like a necessity and a drive that's incredible. That's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems simple, but yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes simple is hard.
Sometimes simple is hard. Yeah, and it wasn't my idea; it was your idea, by the way. Your wisdom I'm highlighting here, by the way. I can take credit for it if anybody like give it to me, but it was your wisdom. Okay, so tell us more. Now you're in a spot. How long did you expect your career to go? You're now in a different area of life. You're a coach, but let's go from now. You're older athlete. You're going after big things. You want to go all the way. Everybody always has to in their mind say, okay, I'm done now, or I've got a little bit more and I want to try again. What was that for you? And were you able to think past your running career?
Well,
because you were a pro for Nike, right?
Yeah, I did. That's correct. And I just want to clarify that you said I won gold medals, but you're referring to my U.S. titles. I never won any gold medals. I won U.S.
Well, aren't those U.S. gold medals?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. But I didn't want you to
refer to the U.S. gold medals.
Yeah. I just didn't want to.
Yeah. See, now here you did one other reason that you're successful. So I was definitely referring to the 3 gold medals you got as a U.S. athlete. But you, in your humility, are making sure that you're not being oversold here. But it was in your introduction, by the way, which is why we're drawing back to that. But we're going to keep this segment in. We're not cutting this out because I want people to realize that this trait of humility, which you just demonstrated, is one of the reasons you've been successful. Okay, keep going.
So I did. There was a point when I realized that I did have to move on, and you asked the question, how long did you think your career was going to go? I thought it was going to go longer. I really thought I thought I'd be competitive into my 30s. I possibly maybe, late 30s, into my mid to late 30s. I thought I'd still be competitive, but I certainly was not. I was not. That was not the case for me. And that was the one part that it was very frustrating for me towards the end of my really prime athletic career that basically ended by the time I was 30. It was pretty much all but over.
And how do you go from getting all that worldwide attention and holding the U.S. record for as long as you did, to then not being able to do the thing that got you all of that attention? How is it just as a man?
It was hard. It was really hard. It was very hard. And, I mentioned, hey, I felt like I had no option. And from a standpoint of knowing, of hey, in order to get better or to continue to run or compete, I had to do that. I still felt that way. However, there was a difference between what, like, to what end was I going to do it? You know, was this going to be my, like my job? You know, I feel extremely blessed to have been able to make a living as a runner. You know, that, like, if somebody had said that was going to happen to me when I first started running, I said, sign me up, man. That sounds pretty sweet. Right. You know, but we all have this, you know, this sort of sinful need to always have more, you know, and did I want to accomplish more? Yeah, I did. Of course. You know, I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't want to do more. Yeah, I did. Cause I didn't, you know, I already told you, I didn't win any Olympic gold medals or, you know, I didn't set any world records. And those are the top things that you can do.
Yeah, just those pesky little national 16-year running records at running 3-minute and 46-second mile. Just the little things like that. I get it. No, yeah.
So yeah, you're laughing, but you know, you're right. I should be grateful. I am. I should be like, hey, that's awesome. I did it. Like, that's pretty good. Good job, man. You know,
that is, but it says a lot about, I mean, I'm comparing that to my 54-second quarter mile in high school and I just feel a little small over here.
Yeah. But let's take your PR. I mean, you still ran 54 seconds and that was like the best that you could do for you. So like,
yeah, but if somebody would have told me I could have made a living running, I would have chosen to make a living as a dental patient. There's a difference between you and me. I just did it to be in shape for other sports. Okay, so, all right, so you went through this struggle. What helped you get through the struggle? I mean, you got past that, and you're in a great place. What are the things? What's the advice you can give to other guys who, whether they're athletes or not, are transitioning from one thing to the next, and they have to kind of face their ego and get things in order?
Well, that is where the faith part comes in. That is where the faith part comes in. Because, you know, I knew I had at that, you know, I knew I didn't finish my degree. I had to finish my degree. So I was like, oh, well, what do you do? Well, I need to get a job. Well, I have to finish my degree first to get a good job, because that's going to satisfy me. Right. And then you do that. And then you start to realize, well, that's not really going to make me happy. What's going to make me happy? You know, that ending of my athletic career, you know, prompted that question. And for everybody out there that's like sort of hearing that, like at some point you're gonna realize, like, what is gonna fulfill my ultimate desire? Like what will do that? And that question came up, and the answer was I needed to fill up that emptiness that I had inside of me when the running part like went away in terms of like being the center of my life. Because when that went away, I had to fill it up, and this little voice inside of me said, you need to fill it up with what matters. And that was God, and he was calling to me. And was sort of part of my, you know, push and journey towards becoming fully in communion with the church, you know, and, you know, my wife is Catholic, and I had sort of been putting that off, or at least putting off the thought of like exploring that, maybe a little bit from sloth, but mostly because, you know, my idol was running, you know, and that was my idol, and I had to fill it up. And I tried to fill it up with that, but then that abandoned me. And, I just made this commitment to fill it up with God, you know, you know, I wanted my will to try to be aligned with God's will. And I finally committed to joining the RCIA because I'd heard enough. I knew that the truth is the truth, and that Christ established this church for us, and you know, he wants us all to be a part of it. And I went through the RCIA, and I wanted to take all those lessons that I learned as a runner and apply it to my the spiritual life, and to help, number one, help myself get to heaven, because that's my goal. I had these goals in running. I said, well, what's the real goal? What's a better goal? Like a goal that will never, ever tarnish, records that will never, ever be broken, and times that can never be matched. And that's going to heaven. That's really what matters. I made that commitment. And before I knew it, now I'm the head coach at Ave Maria University, this awesome Catholic school in Florida, talking to you.
Amazing. That's amazing. So one of the things that really stands out when you say this is what, naturally we all go through. And, on the show, I have all sorts of guests. The previous guest we had is a self-proclaimed agnostic. But it is amazing how much he's like growing in his understanding. Between you and me, by the way, this guy is like 2 steps away from totally accepting the truth. Okay. Because he's grown from like a lot of lies in society into things that are true. And he has all these desires. You said something that's pretty awesome. And the Thomistic argument for God under desire, maybe you're familiar or not. You know it without knowing it because you spoke articulately to it without even actually saying it. Are you familiar with it, though?
No.
Okay, so basically it's this. We have all these desires. You never would have said, well, I ran 3:46. I'm done now. You would want a better result. And a better result, and a better result. There's nobody that ever says, that was my fastest time, now I am done. You have a certain goal to get to. So we all want something better. A car 100 years ago is not as good as a car today, or as good as a car will be in 10 years. Technology is not as good as it was, yesterday it wasn't as good as it is today, and tomorrow won't be as good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because all human beings desire something better. We have a great cheeseburger, we're like, that was so good. Oh, there's a better one. Let me try it. Until we have the best and the most perfect cheeseburger. And ultimately speaking, we desire perfection, and we can never have it here. There's only one perfect thing. So your desire for God, you tried seeking and running until you ultimately found it. And I just think that's a fascinating thing for most people.
Yeah. And that what you said right there kind of gives me hope, and I think it should be like something that can provide hope for anyone, for anybody in any profession or any industry, but specifically running, in that can you find holiness somewhere or anywhere, and I believe you can. I know you can, because God created all things good, and so there can be a divination of sports. We can find holiness in a vocation. It's possible to do that as long as you put God first. If God comes first, then all other things kind of fall into order there. And that's I will try to say that Ave Maria is like perfect utopia. But one of the cool things that I believe happens here is that there is definitely an effort there, and if you come on campus and you'll see that, like in the way, the president talks, my boss, Joe Patterson talks, everybody's there, and we're trying to encourage each other. And in the sports part just comes as this like kind of extra bonus play thing that we get to do, that is it along the way. We're on this journey, and the running part can be a complement to it as long as it doesn't become that idol. If it doesn't.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like, I look at somebody who's trying to accomplish certain things and they are super committed to them, and they are not committed to God, but they're committed to the thing that they're trying to accomplish. What I say to them if they, invite me in is, listen, the very thing you're looking for there, you're never going to find, but you can find it someplace else. And as long as you seek it there, you will never be satisfied in what you're doing. But if you find it this other place, you will no longer be trying to find it there. In other words, in running, and you will be way happier because running will provide you only what running will provide. And the thing you're trying to have it provide is never going to be found there. And there's a certain freedom to perform that way. And greatness needs a stage. You know, you can't say, I'm striving to be holy and be a good steward and not do something. If you're going to be a good steward, you're going to invest in your skills. And you are, as you said, you're going to grow in holiness and godliness through running, you know, or somebody else in accounting or cleaning the floors or cooking or whatever it happens to be. And all those things matter. So I have a big question for you. If you would have, I'm going to combine this. If you would have known when you were 18 what you know now, what are the big things you wish you'd have known then? And had you known them, could you maybe have medaled at a higher level in the Olympics?
I believe so, yeah. And the answer would be, just repeating what I said, was making faith the priority. I think that is my biggest regret of that full.
And how would that have made you? I find this to be true, by the way, for most people. God loves us naturally enough that we can perform at high levels outside of his grace. But inside of his grace, we can use it. And it's not health and wealth. It's not like, oh, become a Christian because you're going to win a gold medal. Become a Christian, then you'll be a billionaire. I'm not saying that. But obviously, if you're cutting that off, you're cutting off a certain natural ability. How is it that your faith, do you think, what would you have done differently that would have allowed your faith to make you a better athlete?
I think I would have been more patient. I think one of my flaws was that I was not patient. I say that was my biggest regret. That there were times when I overtrained or overdid it. You know, I think that if I was a little bit more patient, then I probably would have avoided some of the mistakes that I made. I mean, you don't know. You're asking, like, can I?
It's a speculative question.
I get it, but I think I would have had a better chance. Certainly, you know, if I was a little more patient, just a little more, which would have made me probably more confident. You know, just having perspective. You know, I think that I a lot of times as a coach, I try to make things positive. You know, no matter where you are, no matter what level you're at, even if you're the 54-second guy trying to get to 53 seconds, you know, just making sure that you remain positive, and which I did well on some of the time, but not all of the time. And I definitely became sort of negative against myself and became my own worst enemy because of the negativity. But, you know, so many times, like, you sort of forget how much God loves you. And you know, I certainly didn't remember that when I should have, you know, and just be like, hey, Alan, it's okay. Like, I still love you. Like, no matter what, you know, and that was one thing my parents did a great job. Like, they were sort of became fans of the sport, but they didn't know about track before they had a son that was really good at it. You know, they didn't know. Right. You know, and so, you know, like I knew my parents would still love me, you know, if I didn't do well, but I almost got mad that they like, if I didn't do well, like, I was like mad, they weren't mad with me, you know, and like, I was trying to like draw them into like this pool of negativity that I had after like a poor performance. And I think that, you know, the Christian perspective is trying to realize that God loves us so much, no matter where we are, whether or not you're good enough at running to be doing podcasts with Dave Duran or what you'd call ordinary. Like, maybe it seems ordinary, but each person is still this extraordinarily, incredibly valuable creature or child.
Yeah,
you know, there's this child that's there that is so valuable, more than any gold medal or record, and sort of being reminded of that in the Christian worldview is so important. And you know, you asked the question, like, would I have done better? Yeah, I think I definitely think that I would have been a better athlete because of it, having that perspective, just having that perspective and living things that way.
You know, that is you read over and over again, and you know this, self-esteem issues, dignity issues, all these issues that people have because they don't recognize their value. They don't know that they were made by the ultimate being of love who designed them particularly for a purpose in life. And if you don't feel like you have a purpose and you're just some bacteria and protozoa that turned into eventually a leaf and then an ape and then a human, and then you go from there to not even really knowing what kind of human you are. That's a miserable existence. But, and there's way too many problems to solve if that's the case. Like, you have to wake up every day going, am I a man? Am I a woman? Why do I have meaning? And you can't ever get to those answers if you start with that. But if you start with, God loves me and he made me for a reason, let me go find it out. Wow. You're just way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You're working with young people, but they're still adults. And, they're in this kind of crazy world, but they're in a great environment there at Ave. Are you watching them grow in their faith through sports and the way they're guided?
Yes. I mean, I haven't been here that long, but I would say yes. In fact, they've pushed me. I've been inspired by them. I understand my responsibility as a coach here, and to do that, and I take it seriously. But there's so many times when, I'll feel like I'll feel the call to say, don't forget to, let's make sure we say a prayer of Thanksgiving. But then they'll just take over, and then they'll do that. I don't even have to say it. I don't have to ask. It just happens. And those men and women have inspired me, and to just sort of be a part of that momentum. It feels like, maybe a different sports analogy is like surfing. I feel like I just get on this wave, and I'm like, now I'm just on the wave and just ride the wave, like this. And then it becomes a little easier, and then sort of scripture comes to mind about, my burden is light, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, that type of thing where you're like, oh man, it feels like a burden, but not really. That's not a burden, it becomes a joy. And so, just being in that environment, that's something that's hard to prove, like you can't always see inside of everyone. But I definitely feel like there's momentum at Ave and on our team, but then from a university as a whole, I feel that momentum. Yeah, it is pretty incredible, and President Mindorf has done a fantastic job there, no doubt about it. And he's got such a great team, a great staff. They really understand what that means. What I find when I go to Ave, for whatever reason, I am there, and I'm there for many reasons, is that even guest lecturing, these students come up afterwards, and they're so filled with gratitude. And it's really like, it's unlike any place that I've ever experienced, any university. And if this sounds like a plug, so be it. That I'm super enthusiastic about what Ave provides people. It's a really remarkable organization. Well, you've been a great guest. I mean, what's so great about you as a guest is you threw out all of these like really intense nuggets of wisdom as though they were just ordinary common language. And I think that's one of the things that just is the highlight here. We always have to do a highlight reel of all the things that he said that were so ordinary that everybody else is going, you got to be kidding me. That's awesome. Alan, is there anything you'd like to just send off to the audience here as a closure before we do a wrap up? Oh, I'd just like to say thank you for listening, and just thank you for having me on. You're doing a cool podcast here. So thanks for having me on.
Got some really excellent highlights. If people want to become a giant and go slay dragons, they're going to listen to a lot of what you said right there. If you like the podcast today, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you make a comment too. Share this with other people, and be sure to go to Spotify and to go to Apple Podcasts and put a 5-star review and a comment there as well too. Until next time,
We will see you. Let's go slay some dragons.
Hey there, Giant. Thanks for watching Durand On Demand. I need your help with something. The world desperately needs more Giants. You know it, and I know it. We've been around a lot of people struggling, figuring out how to make things go. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with as many people as you can. We're going to build this audience, and we're going to help people slay dragons together.